and welcome to episode 40 of the Crochet Circle podcast. This one is called Win in Barcelona. My name is Faye and this is my audio and video podcast, and it's for those that love fibre crafts, particularly crochet. This community that we have is for people that like to support their fellow humans. So I hope you feel the welcome embrace and love of the Crochet Clan, and you can come on in and stay a while. So, apologies in advance because this is like a comedy of errors recording this podcast. I went to use my normal camera setup and it won't work. Matthew has been fiddling with it. That naughty husband of mine has been trying to use my camera for something and now it won't work. So he is in trouble deep when he gets back. So I'm recording on my new phone. Did a little test. And I think the video quality is good enough, and I hope that the sound quality is good enough too. If it is, then I think I might continue to record on my phone because I actually quite like the setup. It works well for me. If the audio, however, isn't good enough, then I will go back to my old setup. Because I record for audio and video, I need to ensure that the audio is good enough. So if you have any feedback for me, please just let me know. And I will see if I need to change anything around. But this new whizzy new camera phone that I have is just incredible. And one of the reasons I got it, well, one, because I am the phone breaker, that's what I do. And two, because the video quality seems particularly good on it. So when I'm out doing shows, I've got something that is one piece of machinery rather than having multiple things that I'm carrying around and making my hurting my shoulders, which are an issue for me. So yeah, let me know what you think. So in this month's podcast, I have got an Old Dog New Tricks. I want to give you a quick update on the inclusivity work that I've been doing in diversity. We have got some finished objects, some kind of works in progress. I'll explain more on that. A design in progress, some feeding the habit, quick news beats, and some big ups. I think that's everything. So like I said, comedy of errors for this podcast. Apologies. I might keep on breaking in and out. I also have my niece here today. I actually intended on recording the podcast yesterday. That just didn't happen because I had loads of orders coming through the shop and I kind of have to prioritise the things that pay. And so my niece is over. She's doing her A-levels at the moment and she's got her exams in May and June, and she's doing economics, which she hates and was really struggling with studying. So we have an agreement whereby she drives down here through here once a week and I set her up on our dining table and she studies for 50-minute bursts, and then in her 10-minute break I make her a cup of tea, feed her homemade cookies, and generally she knows that she's got 50 minutes of hard work, 10 minutes break, 50 minutes of hard work, 10 minutes break, and then at lunchtime she gets nice home cooked soup, and then she does another 3 sessions in the afternoon. So if the podcast is a little bit bittier this month, apologies, but I really want to support my niece. I would love her to get a good grade in her economics A-level, so I'll do whatever it takes to help her with that and make sure that she's getting her study done. Right, slurp coffee and then let me give you a bit of an update on inclusivity. Last month I talked about all of the actions I wanted to do for the podcast, and just to let you know, there is now a blog post up on my website which is knittit-hookit-craftit.com, and within that there is a lovely list of BIPOC crochet designers. So that's Black, Indigenous or people of colour crochet designers. And what's happened is Claudia from Crochet Luna Vlogcast has been in touch with all of these designers, got their acceptance for us to feature them in her story highlights on Instagram. So if you would prefer to look at this on Instagram, go to Claudia's highlights, or also on the blog post. So what I've done is got the designers' names and then done a load of kind of research to pull together their Ravelry names, any other places that you can find them, so other selling platforms like Etsy, because they might sell other bits and pieces. If I've seen that they're also a podcast or a tech editor, then I've given that detail as well, and basically shown all the different platforms that you can find these crochet designers. So please do go and take a look at that blog post. I will link to it in the show notes. Claudia is still working ahead on the new logo for the podcast and for the global hookups. And so that will be one for the future. And you will see, if you're watching the podcast rather than listening to it, then you will see that I, for this month, will have started adding photos of the people that are the designers or the yarn dyers that I'm buying from. And if you go to the show notes, because you are watching this rather than because you're listening to this, I told you it's one of those podcasts, because you're listening to the podcast rather than watching it, then those photos will be up into the show notes as well. That will allow you to actually see the person, the human behind the fibre that you're working with or the pattern that you're working with, and there, you know, that connection should be deepened, hopefully. Right, do we need to get on to, shall we do Old Dog New Tricks? I want to talk about, in this month's Old Dog New Tricks, gut reactions to things. I quite often have people questioning their colours or questioning bits of a design. Now, I know some people will religiously stick to a design and stick to what's on paper, even if their gut is telling them that something doesn't feel quite right or it's maybe not the right thing for them. And I, through today's Old Dog New Tricks, just want to encourage you to follow your gut. And I think I'm going to give you a trick for doing that, particularly on things like the colours that you choose. But first of all, what I want to do is give you a clear example of where I should have followed my gut. So I'm holding up my Esja sweater, which is a crocheted yoked top-down jumper. And what I'm doing is showing the back of it, because you get to a part in this pattern where you stop and you do some short row shaping. Apologies, because I'm basically pointing to my boobs for this one, because that's where the short row shaping is. But you do short row shaping to lengthen the back a little bit. And when I was doing it, my gut was telling me, this isn't actually necessary, this is a pain in the backside, and I don't think it's going to really bring anything to the party. And I was right. I should have just skipped that step. I don't think it brings enough difference to the length of my top. And I'm just going to see, there is maybe 1.5 centimetres in difference in length that it brings to the back from the front. And what it actually does is shows a very different part of your stitch pattern, because you've been working in the rounds and then you go to short rows, and I have this band that will go across the back of my my jumper on the back, and it just, I don't like it, and I should have just listened to my gut and not done it. I know for next time, and I'll pop that into the show notes for this, but it can be quite hard to listen to your gut and think, well, actually that's not what I want. And that's, I think, one of the beauties of crochet is it's really easy to rip it back. It's not like knitting. It doesn't take a long time. It's easy to rip it back and then start again and try it another way. And I would encourage you to do that as much as possible. Likewise with this jumper, actually, I was going to use my contrast variegated colour down at the bottom. My gut was telling me that it would create an imbalance with the top of the jumper down to the bottom. And I tried it out anyway, probably put about 40 minutes worth of work on it and then tried it on and just went, no, you were right. I should have listened to my gut. I knew that it wasn't going to look right. I knew that it would just create that imbalance, and I ended up ripping it back and redoing that work. And the reason I mention it under that kind of brand, the reason I mention it with colour is because I think that colour is one of the things that baffles crafters most of all. Some people have just got an amazing eye for colour, and they can pull together different colours and it can just look exceptional, and it is a real talent. But I would also hazard a guess for people that don't feel that they've got that talent or know that they don't, you still know in yourself when a colour doesn't work. And that's why you'll get on Instagram or on Ravelry people saying, what do you think of these colours? Does this one work? Does this one not? I would say if you're asking that question, you already know that your colours don't work. And you probably, if you're putting forward, let's say 3 options, you probably already know which one is your favourite option, the one that you want to work with. Now, I listen to quite a lot of management books because essentially I run 3 companies. I've got 3 different things that I do. So I quite often need a lot of help to give me clarity and get me to where I need to be with each part of the business. And I came across a really good tip in a time management book, and it was to get yourself a coin. So if you have 3 options or 2 options, you get them in your mind, one is heads and one is tails, and you flip the coin. And before that coin has even landed, your gut will have told you which is the one that you hope it will be. So let's say I can do grey with mustard, grey with pink. I'm going to flip. I already know in my gut that I want the grey and the mustard. So before that coin has landed, before you've even looked at it, what has your gut told you? What is it you're hoping for before you reveal what that coin flip is? And that is your gut telling you what's right and what is wrong, and that's what you should go with. And you can apply that to all sorts of things throughout your life, not just colour choices for, projects that you're working on. I do it for all sorts of stuff. When I think, should I take this forward? Should I buy this element for the shop? Should I do X, Y, Z? I use the coin trick, and I don't even use the coin anymore. I just virtually go, yep, I know that that's what my answer should actually be, because my gut reaction is telling me it's one way and not the other. Have a play with that this month if you're interested. I would love to hear if you try the coin flip trick to make decisions for bits and pieces, because you already know, but it's allowing your voice to be the one that dominates and comes through and taking that idea forward. Let me know if you use it. I use it quite a lot these days and I find it really helpful. Right, next month, my old dog new tricks, because I will still be on my Esdra sweater, although I have to have it ready for Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I've now finished the body. I'll talk about this in WIPs as well. But next month's old tricks, I'm going to go through how you can do a sleeve decrease, a nice even sleeve decrease that is specific to your arm. So again, next month it will be quite a detailed one, and I'll probably back it up with a blog post so that you've got more detail that you can go back and go through. Finished objects. I've got a few, and some of them are quite varied as well. I showed you on the podcast last month, popped it up in the show notes, the other version of Doppio Colosseum that I've been working on, and that was using the merino silk blend from the Wool Kitchen in Helen's colourway called Worn Denim. That went off. Sent it down to Helen last week, and that was on her stand at Unravel and got a lot of love, which makes me happy. Interestingly, there was a real increase in the amount of crochet at Unravel this year. Indie dyers are starting to get the message. Crocheters buy nice yarn, crocheters want to buy nice yarn, and I then was going around Unravel, and if an indie dyer didn't have a crocheted sample up on their stand, I was less likely to buy from them. In fact, I didn't buy from anybody that didn't have crochet on their stand, and I suspect that's one of the ways that I'm going to spend my money wisely. If an indie dyer isn't supporting my craft, then I don't want to buy from them. Frankly, I think that's how I'm going to go with it. And same with yarn shops. If they haven't got crochet as part of their setup, then they're not catering for me and my craft. So they're not getting my money, frankly. So it's really nice to see so much crochet going on at Unravel. It's really lovely actually. So that was my finished object. I will pop photos up of that in the show notes and up on the screen. Really pleased with it, and I get that back after Edinburgh. So if you're going to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, you'll be able to see that version on Helen the Wool Kitchen's stand. So that was FO number 1. And then I when I was in Barcelona I found a really amazing material shop called Nuronia, and it was they sell a lot of the beautiful Japanese fabrics. And so when I was there, I picked up quite a few fabrics because they sell them by the half metre. They had a load of stuff that was 50% off. And one of my missions for 2019 is to really start, I want to start sewing my own clothes, because I want to be able to control the materials that I'm wearing and the size that I've got. I wouldn't say I'm in a regular size, but I'm reasonably tall. I've got really long legs, and my torso is a reasonable length. I am muscular. I do a lot of shows and I do a lot of upper body lifting. So even if I lose weight throughout the rest of my body and it goes off my stomach and my boobs, I've still got fairly chunky arms because of the amount of heavy lifting I do for shows and for the shop and in my office. And I often find that when I lose weight, it doesn't fit me in the arms, and then it's too tight around my oxters, and then I just overheat and I feel really uncomfortable. So one of the ways that I can deal with that is by making my own clothes, which means I can extend the arm spaces and just really get clothes that fit me and are properly tailored to my body shape. So in advance of doing that, what I thought I would do is make myself up some project bags. So I spent last weekend, I was only going to make one. 12 bags later and I had been just having a little sew-a-thon and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And what I was trying to do was really get to grips with pattern matching and cutting out using my rotary cutter, doing different elements, so some with zips, some without, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. The sewing machine is still out, but I don't think I'm going to sew anything this weekend. I might have to put it away. I even managed to do myself a little pocket on the inside, and it's just a really nice little bucket double drawstring bag. What I'm going to do is pop the links. I've got both of the bag types that I'm going to photograph and show off. Both of them were YouTube tutorials, and that's how I did them. And I am a very novice sewer, and so yeah, any little scraps and bits and pieces that you've got at home, these bags are just absolutely perfect for. So I tried the drawstring bucket bag, and the thing that I'm particularly bad at is adding zips. So I also tried a little box pouch bag which was zipped, and that worked okay. That was quite good. This was the first set of bags that I did. I only did 3 of these, which tells you how little I like zips, whereas I did 9 of the double drawstring ones. And this is some very special tweed that I bought. It's woven fabric using wool from Uist in the Outer Hebrides. I bought this when I was over on Harris, and we did a day trip down to Uist, and I went to the Uist wool mill and bought some of their woven fabric. So this one is a little bit special. This is probably the most expensive project bag I own, because of the cost of the tweed. It was a lot of money, but I really enjoyed this little project, and that's going to be for sock projects, crochet and knitted. It's perfectly sized for that, and I lined it. So very different finished objects for me, because I just really wanted to get to grips a bit more with sewing, and I love that I've still been able to bring my passion for British breed yarns into my sewing as well. That, and obviously one of the bucket bags had to have cats on it, so my passion for all things cats were also that was also fulfilled. So I've been doing that. What else have I done? I've also gone a little bit back to spinning. I haven't been able to get to my spinning class for a while, and I went last night. I really enjoyed it. So I have got my first ever real proper hand spun off, and it's plied. It's a 2-ply. I don't know what kind of a ply I did. I just pulled the two together and that was it. But I'm really quite pleased. It's reasonably even, I think. And for a first proper job coming off my new spinning wheel, I'll take that. I'm pretty chuffed with that. I was using it's the Harvest Shoes by Jonah Arbin Textiles. It's some of the fluff that they sell, and it was a dream to spin. If you are brand new to spinning either drop or on a wheel, I thoroughly recommend this blend. It wants to go and it's not too slippy. Whereas last night I was trying some Gotland from John Arbin, and this tells the story. I've just got lots of little bits where it was so friable and so fast, it just didn't take, and I persevered for about an hour before I gave up on the Gotland and moved over to some South Down yarn, and that just spins like a dream. It's absolutely beautiful. So this might be my weekend project, is to finish off this top that I've got from Adelaide Walker. So back into spinning, which really makes me very happy because it's a great way of me getting to further grips with British breeds and beyond, not just British breeds, but lots of different breeds of sheep, and having a really good understanding of how they spin and what they'll bring to the crochet party as well. Because my plan is to crochet all of these different breeds into an ongoing blanket, which I've already started. So that's been quite good fun, but I'm well chuffed with my Harvest Shoes finished object. I obviously now need to make it into something, but there's a ball of potential there that I've made. It's very exciting. I have one more finished object, but I'm going to talk about that in Designs in Progress. It's behind me on my lovely mannequin Claude. But that's a design that I'm working on, so I'll go into that in a wee bit. Let's move on to En Route. I only really have one, which is my Isja sweater, because up until last night, because I was meant to be recording yesterday, the finished object that is now on Claude was a work in progress. So let me bring out my Isja sweater again. Like I said earlier, I have now finished the body on this, and I did the bust decreasing that I spoke about last time round, and that seems to have worked really quite nicely. I won't pop it on because what I'll do is savour this until next month when I actually show it as a proper finished object and have it on and have done the sleeves as well. I now just have the sleeves to do, which are not my favourite things in the world. I definitely get stuck on Sleeve Island, and I've got quite a bit of calculating to do on this to make sure that I get a nice long fitted sleeve. The last jumper that I did was a knitted one. You might remember the grey and the yellow one. The sleeves aren't just quite long enough on that, so I would rather make longer sleeves on this one and roll them up or scrunch them up a little than have sleeves that are too short. And I think that was just me on Sleeve Island saying, I've had enough, yeah, that'll do, that's long enough, and it's not. And you can see even the jumper that I've got on today, I've basically got long everything, long legs, long arms, and this is fairly standard fare for me to have a jumper that is like maybe 2 inches too short for me. This should be a full size jumper, and it just isn't because of my my long arms. So I want to make sure that the arms on Isja are spot on. So not much else to say about this other than I did those decreases. I wish I didn't do the short roll shaping in the back. So if any of you are doing the Isja sweater and you're at that point yet, I would honestly try it without first and see how you get on, because I think the change in those rows is actually quite unsightly and I don't like it, and it kind of puts me off the jumper. Not enough that I'm going to rip back maybe 20 inches of work, so I don't hate it that much, and I want to see how it works after blocking. But if you get to that point, maybe question whether you really want to do the short row shaping or not. And that it. I've got socks on the go, but they're all knitted, and I've still got my fallen leaf socks, which I've finished one and I need to turn the heel on the other. So maybe really that should be my weekend project. But that's it, because I'm trying to be a little more monogamous with my crafting and a bit more considered, and trying to do some bigger projects rather than just little ones and having so many on the go. On to designs in progress. I'm currently working on quite a large project, which is knitting, and it's a series of designs, and it might be an annual thing depending on how well it's received when I launch in September. So that's one of the reasons I'm being quite monogamous with my other crafts, is because there's a whole pile of like stuff going on over here, and then what I'm trying to do is delineate work design time from play time and kind of design time. So the one that I'm working on at the moment is totally Barcelona inspired. When we were there at the beginning of February, we were on the open top bus tour, and there's a street in Barcelona called Passeig Gràcia, and it's the one where Gaudi's, some of his most famous buildings are on. So Casa Batlló is on Passeig Gràcia. Across the road from that is the most amazing building, which wasn't designed by Gaudi, but it's in the vein of. And it's a huge building that apparently used to be, it was for the Astrological Society, and it has 3 different shaped kind of turret or tower roofs on it, and they're all, as with Gaudi's work and those that followed on, they're in different colours, and it's a band of 4 different colours with a little bit of blending from one colour into the next, and I was in awe of one of the towers in particular. So as you do when you go anywhere, the first thing you do is work out where the yarn shops are, and the first one that I visited is called All You Knit Is Love, and they are based in the Gothic Quarter, so it was maybe 5 minutes from where we were staying, in the most incredible part of the city. It was beautiful. And when I went in there, I spoke with Jennifer, who she and her husband run the yarn store. She's also a dyer. I'll be able to show you more of that. But they have their own yarn, which is spun just outside of Barcelona, and it's called K2 Together, which is a knitting reference, which is knit 2 together, and it is 70% wool and 30% milk. Yes, you heard me right, that was milk. So I'm guessing somehow they're able to get the proteins out of the milk in the same way that I think they do with seaweed and various other kind of natural things that you can create into fibre. So 70% wool, 30% milk, and it's 105 metres per 100 grams. And it's incredibly soft to work with. But when I went into All You Knit Is Love the second time, because, you know, I went twice, I'd gone in there, and then I saw this piece of architecture, and then I went back because I thought that it would work really well as a cowl, a colourwork cowl, very simple. And she had just the perfect colours. So the colours that I have got on the shawl, on the long cowl that are on Claude, are really spot on for the colours that were in this rooftop. They're just perfect. So there's a warm cinnamony burnt brown colour. There is quite a soft coral kind of rosy colour, and one that she's got it's called Egg Yolk, I think, and it is a yellow, but it's not a really bright, vibrant yellow. Again, it's quite a dusky yellow, and then an off-white which has got pinky tones to it. And I just loved the four of them together, and Jennifer helped me pick them because she also knew the building that I was talking about, and she emailed me with different bits and pieces about the building, which is why I now know more about it, because my Spanish is very limited, and Jennifer is from the States and is fluent in Spanish, so we were able to have really good conversations. So I don't even have a name for this design yet, but I started it a week ago and just had to get it done. I really enjoyed working on it and finished it off last night, so I will come up with an appropriate name for it, possibly on the architect or something around the building, because that most definitely is the inspiration point, and I will add a photo of the building and the turret in particular into the show notes. So now that I've done it once on quite a chunky yarn, I want to do it again. The one that I've already done is a long one that you can double over. I'll just do that because it's hard to style that on my mannequin Claude, but I can pop it on myself. Unfortunately, this is going to be one of those designs where I have to model it myself, which I'm never that keen on, to be honest. But I saw loads and loads of people, particularly guys, in Barcelona with really big, chunky cowls on, some nice jackets, looking. They seem to do smart casual in Barcelona really nice and pull it off in quite a sassy fashion. So I saw loads of guys with big, chunky cowls on and thought, you need to be part of my design inspiration point too. So apologies, I'm probably not showing it off all that well, because the downside of using my camera phone is I can't see what's going on. So I might have hair coming out all over the place, I don't know. But the point is that this cowl is designed to be doubled over. And then what I would like to do is design a second one with using 3 colours, because actually this could be a bit of a stash buster project. So the 3 colours that I've got are again in quite a chunky yarn, a burnt orange, a darker kind of charcoaly grey, and then a mid grey. And this one I won't do as a doubled over, I'll just do it as a much closer in cowl, but make it as long as it needs to be so I can double it into itself if I need to or not. I don't even know what weight this yarn is. It simply has a little white label on it that says the number 2. I can go back and look it up because I know I bought this in De Mercerie in Munich, and I know that it was Bavarian grown wool and spun in Bavaria as well. So I can find out more information if I need to, like what the meterage should be, but that's the next part. And by the time I've finished this one, then I will know what the cowl wants to be called. Yeah, usually names just come really quickly, but it hasn't with this one for some reason, so I need to get that sorted. So that's my current crochet design in progress, and what you may have seen is that even though it's crocheted, it's got a slightly knitted looking texture. I wasn't specifically trying to make it look like knitted, because I think that if you want it to look knitted, we'll just knit it. But what I wanted was something that was really squishy. I started the design off using waistcoat stitch. That creates quite a squishy fabric, but it's quite dense at the same time. Whereas the stitch that I've used for this one is camel stitch, which is squishy without having the density of waistcoat stitch, and it just is lovely, and it's actually quite supple and it's lovely around your neck, whereas the waistcoat stitch one becomes very rigid and won't move anywhere. Camel stitch is the opposite, it's really pliable. And basically it's half treble, half double in US terms. And when you make your half treble, you've got your normal 2 loops that you'd work into the front, but on the back you'll see another bump or hump, hence camel stitch. And if you work into that hump, it's a bit like working into a slip stitch. What it does is pushes your two normal loops that you would work through to the front of your work, and then you can just continue to work in the hoops at the back, and you can work in a continuous spiral. So it makes it a very easy project to work up. It's always obvious where your hook goes into, but by pushing your two normal stitches to the front, it creates a bit of a kind of a knit look V, and not dissimilar to the simple knit stitch in Tunisian crochet. So, but on its side. Yeah, now just a little bit of colour work for the colour changeovers, and that's it. It's a lovely simple cowl, but I'm going to do the same, write it up as a proper pattern, do a pattern tutorial, and get it out at some point in the future. You know, we're coming into the really hot weather, so obviously now is the time to put forward big chunky cowl projects. That's really sensible. So that is it for designs in progress, I think. Let's move on to feeding the habit. I'm going to start with my Barcelona goodies. I really love going away, finding yarn shops and getting new to me yarn. That's what I would spend my money on. So when we go away, although we were in a hotel this time, normally we would go self-catering because we don't eat out lots. We have carpet picnics, we try and eat the local food, but it's either me preparing it or, like I say, we'll go and take picnics out and eat local food that way. But it's a way that we can control costs when we're away, which allows me to buy yarn instead, because I would much rather have yarn than dinner in a restaurant every day of the week, frankly. This is going to sound really snooty, and I don't mean it to sound that way, but I'm frequently disappointed by the food that I eat when I'm out. I'm a reasonably decent cook. I love cooking, and I hate paying money for meals that are really mediocre. I find it actually offensive. So we don't eat out a lot, but we buy really good ingredients when we're at home and when we're away, and we have nice food. So we do it that way, and that releases money for yarn. So the other one that I bought from This Is Knit from Jennifer is one that she has dyed herself, and she has a label called Mur. It might be Murmur, but the Mur is the dominant lettering on the label, so I'm not sure which. And I fell in love with this colourway. I was buying some yarn for my friend Beck. She'd given me money to buy her yarn, and this was one of the ones I photographed for her and said, "Do you want this one?" And as I was holding it up and photographing it for Beck, I was thinking, please don't want that one, please don't want that one, please don't want that one, because I really love it. But I would have willingly bought it for Beck. She's a good friend. And it is 25% cashmere, 75% merino. I've never really had a cashmere merino mix before, so it's beautifully soft. I'm actually petting it as I talk. It is a standard 4-ply light fingering, so 400 metres, which is 437 yards per 100 grams, and it is called Guide. That's the colourway name. And the base of it is purple, quite a deep purple, and then it goes into light mauve. It has teal in there, it has mustard in there, it has green in there, and it just, when I undid the skein in the shop, I figured that the colour changes were quick enough that it would actually work really quite nicely for crochet as well, rather than pooling in big parts of colour pools. I thought this would go well for crochet, which is the other reason that I bought it. That and Jennifer, who dyed it and runs the shop. She was just so lovely. I had such a nice chat with her, and she was busy crocheting up a bag at the time when I was in the shop. And I like to be able to support yarn shops, bricks and mortar yarn shops. So that was, it's so soft and squishy. That was the other thing that I bought from All You Knit Is Love. They had a lot of cotton, quite a lot of Portuguese yarn, which I'm guessing is quite a big thing on the continent. Not so much over here. But yeah, this I think is destined to be a hat and mittens. I think that's where my head is taking this, because it is just so soft. The second shop that I found in Barcelona is called Lalananu, and it's two ladies that run it, and they're actually the ones that are responsible for a new yarn festival that started last year called Barcelona Knits, which, if you haven't come across it, it looked amazing, and they've just released the dates for it, and I'm so tempted to put in an application to vend there because it just looked like so much fun. Barcelona is quite far away and I can't drive there, so maybe I need to rein those ideas in a little bit. This was a really crochet friendly yarn shop. There was a friend of theirs in there who was busy crocheting away one of the Pica-Pau amigurumi. I think it was the dinosaur or the crocodile, but they had supersized it in chunky yarn. It looked fabulous, and lots of crochet books, lots of crochet samples up there. Even their pin badges had crochet elements to it. It was probably one of the most crochet rich yarn shops I've ever been in, which, you know, obviously means that I then need to support them. So I got a few bits and pieces from them. They have got stock in from two Barcelona dyers, and the first one is called, it's Ovejitabe. Again, I am probably butchering that, apologies. It's Ovejitabe, and the lady that dyes this was actually in the shop when I was there, and luckily they just brought in a load of more colourways, so I managed to have a good rumble through them and see which ones I wanted to pick out. And the one that I picked out is called Greenery, and it's very aptly named because it is all the greens. It has very subtle speckling in there in a sort of little bits of brown and darker greens and lighter greens and little nuggets of rust orange, but it's very, very subtle. I think this is going to be knitted socks, but I fell in love with it. It's such a vivid set of greens, and I don't often work in green, and I love it. It's one of my favourite colours, but I don't often find greens that I love, which is, I think, why I end up at the teal end of the scale, because as far as I'm concerned, there is no bad teal. All teal is good. Like mustard, most mustards are good, but I don't feel like all greens are good and can go with my skin tone. However, this one is good. So maybe it needs to be a shawl rather than socks. Maybe it needs to be more prominent. That is a fairly standard wash of fairly standard blend, 75% merino, 25% nylon, 100 grams to 425 meters. And it was just really nice to see the hand dyer and to be able to stand in the shop and support them and support their work. And I've spoken to both of the hand dyers. Their names now totally elude me because it's just one of those days. But the hand dyer for Ovejitabe, when I pinged her a message on Instagram to say, is there a photo of you that I can use for the podcast? I think it's really important to show the dyers and the people behind the brands I'm buying for, and I believe in buying from local yarn shops and buying the less commercial end of the scale. And she came back and said, yes please, that's a fantastic idea. And she basically said, it's because of people like you that I can run my business. Without people buying hand-dyed yarn, there's no way that she can run her business. And just the support that she gets from online, from Instagram, people using her yarn and shouting about it. And I thought, that's really nice to hear, because sometimes you can feel like you're just tagging people on Instagram, but this is an indie dyer telling you that it genuinely makes a difference to her business when you tag them and show off their wares before and after you've used it. So that was really lovely. The other dyer that was in that shop with stock rather than the person is a brand called Sock Una Troca, and she does a sock yarn, and again I'll pop photos up. And I bought for myself two skeins. I will pop photos up though because there are more. So Beck also got an Overdue yarn. That's what I took her back, and I bought Claudia from Crochet Luna Vlogcast a Sock Una Troca as well, and that's winging its way over to her in San Diego. So that's gone, but I'll pop a photo up for it. The colourway that I bought Claudia was called Oberon, and the one that I have is mustard, and it is like proper mustard as far as I'm concerned, and the colourway is called Golden Hour, and that is on 75% wool, 25% polyamide, so nylon, and it is, I think that the actual base is from Catalonia as well, and then hand dyed in Barcelona. And it is, like I say, it's a proper mustard, but it's got little dirty bits in it as well. My skein of yarn has dirty bits in it. It looks like she's sprinkled some kind of green on it, and that's just taken it to a muddy colour just in patches, so there's a little bit of interest. It's not a solid colour, but it is a really good mustard, and I can never pass up a really good mustard. And then the second one that I got from Sock Una Troca is a, how do I describe this? It's got quite a lot of colours in it. It starts with a kind of sagey greeny blue, and then it has speckles of purple, blue, orange, green, yellow in there, rusty orange. It's everything is in there, but in quite a nice, oh, I didn't see that. I've just opened it out a bit, and there's kind of luminous pops of yellow in there as well. There's a little bit of everything in this skein, and I really liked it. And this one is called Ratafia. I have no idea what that means. Ratafia. And that's on the same base as the mustard one. These were not designed to go together, and they're not going to go together. But I really liked them, and the pricing point was good as well. These were €16 each, which is what, about £14.20? That's a really decent price for hand-dyed, indie-dyed yarn, I think. So that was it from Barcelona. So that is not all, because on Sunday I went to Unravel. I went down and back up in one day, took Beck down and Sharon. We had a fab day. Speeding down that motorway because I wanted to make sure I was there on time, and as it happened we ended up being at the front of the queue ready to go into Unravel Festival. And I got a few little bits and pieces from there. I mentioned earlier on Helen from the Wool Kitchen. Helen is Frida Kahlo obsessed. She loves Frida Kahlo, and one of the colourways that she does is called Frida Kahlo, and it's almost like a mallard green. That's how I would describe it. And then what one of Helen's dye things is to have little, I think she calls them zips of colour. So they're a specific length, and when you knit them up, you just get this little burst of colour. And Beck bought some of this when she came down to help me vend at Yarningham in London, and she's already made up a pair of socks with it, and they look amazing. And she was showing them off in my kitchen on Saturday night, and Matthew thought that they were the best socks ever. And you know, I'm never slow to offer him a pair of socks if he shows interest in yarn. And when I said, oh, I can make you a pair in that if you like, I'll be seeing Helen tomorrow. Yes, please. Okay, perfect. Because, you know, I love knitting and crocheting socks, and Matthew seems to now really enjoy wearing them. And there are only so many pairs I can wear, whereas he's probably got 4 pairs of handmade socks by me so far. So if he's showing an interest in this, then absolutely I'm going to make him a very jazzy pair of socks. So that's what this will be. I've got a pair to finish off for him, and then I will start on a fresh pair for him, and it will be his Frida Kahlos. But yeah, so mallard green with luminous pink, luminous purple, luminous yellow, luminous orange, like quite a vibrant turquoise in there as well. It looks really neat when it's been worked up. So that will be on my needles fairly shortly. And what else did I see? Obviously I had to go and see my lovelies, John and Julia Arbin. They have just brought out a new sock yarn called Exmoor Sock. Now I had a little feel of their yarn when it was going through the testing process. I got some to play with and test out some socks with, and it's really nice to work with. The one that I have is undyed, and so what I've done is picked up a couple of skeins. They sell them in 50-gram skeins, and I picked up one of each of Gluth, which is a lovely mid-purple colour on the aubergine side of purple, and another one which is called Hemel, which is a mid-forest green colour. And those two colours together are very thistly. And if I mix that with the undyed, which is quite a nice light to mid grey, then I have the perfect setup for a pair of mittens I want to work on. These are knitted mittens, and I would ideally have them ready for Edinburgh Yarn Festival because they are thistle mittens. I won't show more than that because it's a paid for pattern. It was just released last week, and my lovely friend Katie Green gave me the pattern. She's such a sweetheart. So they are called the Acanthium mittens, and they are going to be on my needles fairly shortly. Also might be a weekend project for this weekend, but I'm looking forward to seeing these colours pulled together and testing out the sock yarn for colour work as well, because if it works well for knitted colour work, then it should also work well for crochet colour work. Now I haven't brought them in for you to see them here because I'll show you in a design in progress later on in a future episode, but I picked up more colours of this because very excitingly I am doing a crochet pattern for a festival, a yarn festival. You've heard me talk about it before. Yarn Folk in Northern Ireland in Whitehead is on the first week of August, and I have a lovely relationship with Louise, who does the festival, and she owns Lighthouse Yarns in Whitehead, and she asked me whether I would be interested in doing a crochet shawl for their festival. Yes, I am. Of course I am. So I'm doing it in the Exmoor Sock. So more details to follow on that, and I will show you what colours I'm working on in the future. But this will give me a good handle on working with the yarn when I make my thistle mittens. What else did I find? When I was looking at all of the information on Instagram for Unravel, lovely friend Chrissy from Chrissy Crafts podcast basically said that I need to go and see Irish Artisan Yarns. And she wasn't wrong. It's a newish yarn dyeing company. I want to say that your name is Tanya, and I think it is, and I can't remember. Honestly, names are just not sitting in my head at the moment. But she has done, she started off doing yarns that were naturally dyed, and then what she found was that her customer base wanted to buy repeat colourways. They wanted to buy larger quantities, so jumpers worth. And the problem with natural dyeing is the results aren't that dependable. So what happens one week won't happen the next week. And so what she's done is started up her company, and she now acid dyes, but she hand paints them, so she's got that repeatable colourway perfected, but it has the feel of naturally dyed yarn. both through her colour choices and the way that the gradients work within her yarn. And the one that I picked up is called Carrick a Reed. And some of you may have heard of Carrick a Reed, maybe some of you have not, but it's on the Antrim coast in Northern Ireland. So her mum still lives in Northern Ireland. She now lives down south, but she goes back over to visit, and her colourways are all very much inspired by Ireland. So she had beautiful product shots of Giant's Causeway at sunset, and then the yarn colourway beside that. I'll try. Carrick a Reed is right on the coast, and it's the area that's got the rope bridge that goes over onto the little island, which you can pay for to go on. It looks reasonably scary, so lots of fun. But it's also where they have the massive kind of quarry bit right on the coast where they filmed parts of Game of Thrones. A lot of Game of Thrones is filmed in Northern Ireland. And so, given that I was there last year and we went and had a little day trip up to all of these places and stopped off at Carrick a Reed, I thought that this was one, a beautiful colourway, but also it's got lovely memories to it as well. So it's another sagey green. It's actually not too dissimilar from the Sock in the Troca one that I got, but it kind of melts into a nice denim blue as well. It's very subtle, like I say, really mimicking what you would get with naturally dyed yarns, and I like that. It is subtle. So I bought that one because I wanted to support her, and she had gone to the lengths of crocheting up little sample circles of her colourways to show how they work in crochet, and I really appreciate that. And you could just have a little rifle and check the yarn and see how it would crochet up. So again, she deserved some support, and she was just lovely. Her and her mum were such sweeties, really, really lovely. And she also gave me a little goodie bag, and I got a mini skein, which is a one of a kind, and that's in all of the blues. So I don't think I want to use it with the full skein that I bought, but I appreciate being handed a nice little bag with all of her branding on it, and having a mini skein. I had a really nice time standing and talking to them for kind of 10-20 minutes, and I'm trying to encourage them to come over to Yarn Folk and to vend at Yarn Folk, because I think their stuff is perfect, because she's so inspired by that part of Ireland. So hopefully we'll see her there. Final thing that I got. I actually meant to buy these when I was at the Waltham Abbey Wool Show in January when I was vending there, but what happens when you vend is you're in a massive rush to do setup, and all of your fellow vendors are in exactly the same boat, especially when it's a one-day one, because generally you do setup and take down on the same day. So then you vend, they open the doors, and it's just rush, customers all day long. And then the show shuts and everybody just rushes to do takedown, get in the car and get home as quickly as possible, which means I missed going to Joe's Toes. And lovely lady called Amanda, and she sells felted slipper bottoms, and she does it with an insole and also an outer which has got like a rubberized, it's almost like something's been melted onto it, so it's a non-slip thing for the bottom of your slippers, and it comes with pre-punched holes. Now she actually sells all of the bits so that you can make your own slippers and just quickly sew them together. She has little felted hearts that you can attach to them, all sorts, so you can quickly and easily make yourself some lovely woolly slippers. However, I have got a knitted slipper kit that has been in my stash for maybe 3 years, and when I was questioning myself as to why it is that I haven't yet made them, it's because my feeling was that I would wear through the wool too quickly and wouldn't necessarily be warm enough for me. So I have got myself some Joe's Toes inners and outers, so that I've got some really nice hard wearing slippers that I can make for myself. So I will knit them, sew them all together, pop the insole in, and have some nice homemade house slippers. So I'm really pleased to have finally got my paws on that, and love that it's 100% felted wool. So no plastic on these, and they will be made by me eventually when I knit the slippers. I think that's it. That feels like enough. It does. So it's quite a lot of kind of incoming, but there's a lot of outgoing as well. So the shawl, I keep on referring to it as a shawl. The cowl was 400 grams, and that's 400 grams that's coming and being used inside of, well, less than a month. So I'm sure some of you must see the stuff that comes in by me, but I don't show everything off on the podcast that I make, and so you don't get to see all of the stuff that I actually use, because what I tend to try and do is show you mainly my crochet projects, and you don't see all of the knitting stuff that I do. So, but you know, since January I've probably finished off 3 or 4 pairs of socks that you haven't seen, because you don't want to see knitted sock after knitted sock. Moving on to quick news beats. The next global hookups are on the 9th and 10th of March. So on Saturday the 9th, it's an 8 o'clock hookup. That's 8 in the evening, and that's GMT. And then the next one is on the Sunday morning, and that's at 9 o'clock in the morning, GMT. I may or may not be in my pyjamas for that one. Everybody is welcome. Just come along and have a nice little crafting session with us. I run it over 2 sessions and 2 different timelines, so that it truly is a global hookup, and we have people from all over the globe coming and joining in the crafting sessions. It tends to be more people from Australia that join the Sunday morning one, because that works for them, and more people from kind of US that join in on the Saturday evening one. You'd be very welcome to come and join us, so please do. What else do I have? Oh, I am in talks. Matthew has a colleague that he works with his networking. She's lovely, and she's called Lindsay Marchant, and she's an occupational health therapist. And Lindsay is also a crocheter, and she has agreed to come and do an interview for us about positions for crafting and how to make sure that you've got the best posture and the best setup. And so what I'm thinking about doing is making it quite a physical interview. So rather than us just sitting down and talking to the camera, what I was thinking about doing was actually showing Lindsay all of the different positions that I craft in, and then she can tell me whether I should be doing things differently or not. So that way she can tell me about posture and whether I'm hunching my shoulders or not, and you know, the different things. So then you will have a really good live reference of the things that can be changed when you are doing your crafting. So that's probably going to be a summertime interview that we do. But in advance of that, do you have any questions that you would like to pose to somebody who understands crochet, who does it as one of their hobbies, but also can give help and guidance on the way that we do our craft? So yeah, ask away, ask any questions, and then I can really make it an interactive interview by asking your questions and getting you the answers that you need. Have a little think about it. I will make sure that I've got more toing and froing with Lindsay before the next podcast, and then I can give you a little bit more detail about it and what it is that we hope to get across with the interview. But I thought that was quite exciting. I like the fact that it could actually be genuinely helpful for people and doing their craft. If anybody is north of England, kind of North Wales based, I'm going to be heading over to UFelty Thing on the 16th of March. Nikki is celebrating the first birthday of her yarn shop, which is just, it's fantastic. And if you haven't been before, she's got a full-on open day birthday celebrations on the 16th. Come on up. I'm going to be there from about 12 till 5 o'clock. And she regularly hosts, every month she'll do a knit along or a crochet along or a make along of some sort, and on the open day she's going to launch a loft along using my patterns. So I'm going there to show support and help anybody that's just starting out on their pattern or wants help choosing colours or just generally being on hand as a designer to be there for her customer base and to sit and eat cake, drink tea and be merry and have a bit of a giggle with some people. So if you're about, please do come along to You Felty Thing in Llandudno, that's North Wales, on the 16th of March. The week after that, it's all go at the moment. The week after that, I will be up at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and on the Thursday afternoon, I will be on Tanya TG Frog's stand, doing all things Dorset Button and just giving her a bit of help. Normally her lovely husband Geraint would be on the stand with her, but he's got to scoot off and go and do something else on the Thursday afternoon, so I'm calling in to help Tanya out and give her some support on her stand. I don't have her stand number yet, but I'll pop it out on Instagram if you want to pop by. Come and talk Dorset Buttons with Tanya. She's very knowledgeable, but she also has her own wool for sale. She does all sorts of stuff, her own project bags with Dorset Buttons on them. She's a real powerhouse of local wool, breed specific, and retaining a traditional craft and giving it a modern twist. So she uses some indie dyed yarns on her Dorset Buttons and they are beautiful. So if you're coming to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, come and say hello to Tanya, and I'll be on her stand on the Thursday. I will then be in the festival on the Saturday and on the Sunday for the Make Wool event, and going to see Mr. John Arbin talk about spinning, because I could hear that as many times as you like. I love seeing John talk. He's got a cheekiness to it and he's very down to earth. He's all about the spinning and all about their mill and their team, and I really appreciate that. So I will be in there on the Sunday, so if you're coming to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, then yeah, let me know. I'll be there Thursday afternoon, Saturday and Sunday. Quick big up, I've got one for you, and it's slightly different. Yeah, it's a slightly different one. It's a podcast, and it's an audio podcast, and it has nothing to do with crafting. But I suspect that quite a few of you are David Tennant fans. David Tennant has a new podcast out where he interviews his friends, and it's very, very funny. It is sweary, so less so DT and more his guests. So be warned for that. Like if you've got your kids or you're not into swearing, this may not be the podcast for you. But David Tennant is just such a honey pie, and the first person that he interviews is national treasure Olivia Colman, and Oscar winner. And then the second person that he interviews is Whoopi Goldberg, which I haven't listened to yet, but we'll be doing that this weekend. And he just basically interviews his friends and has a bit of a chinwag with them, and it's very funny. And it's a really lovely podcast. So I will provide links to that in the show notes. It's about 4 to 5 minutes to an hour for the podcast episode that I listen to. Great fun. The other big up, and this is why I have been sewing, also is because the Great British Sewing Bee is back on our screens, and I think we're into week 3 now, series 5, and that honestly is why I've been getting my sew on, because I love the Great British Sewing Bee. If you're, I guess you probably get it in other countries. It's a bit like it's like Bake Off but with sewing. That's the best way I can describe it. It's a BBC production, and they have now got Joe Lycett is the person that's in the room with the sewers doing the commentary, and it is very, very funny. In the first episode there was a bit where the beautiful Patrick Grant basically told the sewer that he'd created a hungry bum for his model, and it was hilarious. I love it. It's like a little bit of escapism for an hour. So if you haven't come across it and you like your sewing and your crafting, then Great British Sewing Bee is a really nice one to go and watch. Right. I think I'm done. I think I've told you everything you need to know. I think I've done everything. It's finally time to wrap this beast of a podcast up. It's going to be very bitty, like I say. I apologise. Nothing's really going to plan today. So thank you very much for tuning in, whether that is through audio or through YouTube. You can get all of the show notes at www.thecrochetcircle.podbean.com. If you want to get in touch with me, the best way is through Instagram, because I'm on that every day. Ravelry doesn't really get a look in these days, unfortunately, but I don't have so much time and I have to put it somewhere, and Instagram is where I tend to put it. You can get all of my handles from the show notes, and they come up on the slides that's coming up in a minute. So yeah, come and find me and say hello. Right, done and done. See you soon, lovelies. Yeah, I'll see you in April after all of the amazing things that are due to happen in March. Bye bye. Man, it's a disaster of events today. You're about to fall. No! We've got a cat outside. He's not been in for ages. Let me see if I can encourage him. Wiggle woo! Do you want to come in for a cuddle? Come on then. It's raining, you silly sausage. Come on. No. Clearly not. He doesn't want to come in. It's chucking it down out there. And silly little Bean has just bobbed off inside.